It's December 6th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the South Korean political turmoil. On the night of the martial law declaration, around 10 soldiers reportedly broke into the National Election Commission, a lot earlier than they were deployed to the National Assembly, in an attempt to collect election-related data for investigating suspected election fraud. The U.S. State Department says the South Korea-U.S. alliance transcends any particular president, adding that the impeachment process against President Yoon Suk Yeol will proceed in line with South Korea's constitution. Seoul subways are operating as normal on Friday morning as unionized subway workers called off their strike after a last-minute breakthrough with management. But a strike by workers of the national railway operator Korea-U.S. is still ongoing. Ahead of the impeachment vote against President Yoon Suk Yeol on Saturday, the ruling People Power Party leader Han Dong-won has called for the president to be suspended from his duties as soon as possible due to the circumstances surrounding his martial law order.
Yesterday, I said I would work to prevent the impeachment of President Yoon Suk Yeol to avoid unnecessary harm to the public and supporters. However, given the new facts that have come to light, I now believe it is crucial to swiftly suspend President Yoon from his duties to protect the country and its people.
Now, Han's remarks came Friday morning during an emergency meeting of the PPP Supreme Council. He claimed that Yoon planned to arrest key politicians on charges of anti-state activities and intended to detain them in a facility in Gwacheon, Gyeonggi-do Province. Now, South Korea's National Assembly was reportedly not the first place to see martial law troops on Tuesday night. The first stop was the National Election Commission. An Sung-jin reports.
Only 7 minutes after the declaration of the martial law decree and an hour before the storming of the National Assembly, the first place that troops headed to was the National Election Commission. By a little past midnight on Wednesday morning, already more than 100 soldiers were at the Central Commission building in Gwacheon City and nearly 200 more at other locations. That's slightly more than those that were at the National Assembly. Employees say the troops entered the Information Management Bureau where personal information is stored.
Telephones were confiscated from 5 people that night, including night shift workers. An entrance to the building was controlled.
The Secretary General added that there were no missing items or data theft, but questioned whether the entering of the committee building is in accordance with the constitution of the martial law decree, as the NEC does not apply to those institutions that need to be controlled. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun told local media that the martial law troops entered due to the need to investigate allegations of election fraud. However, he did not elaborate on what those allegations are. The opposition party suggested that the move comes amid resentment from the last general election, which the Democratic Party took victory and pledged to thoroughly investigate the background behind the attempt to take over the election committee. The NEC and National Assembly were the only 2 locations where troops were deployed, so the reason behind entering the committee building is raising further questions. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And a parliamentary hearing took place on Thursday to get a clearer picture of who was behind the deployment of troops to the National Assembly after martial law was declared. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun ordered troops to enter the National Assembly, said Vice Defense Minister Kim Sun-ho on Thursday. This remark was made in response to a lawmaker's question during a plenary session that was urgently held on the turmoil triggered by President Yoon Suk Yeol's aborted declaration of martial law late Tuesday. While saying he feels devastated and sad for not having been able to prevent a series of events from happening in advance, the Vice Defense Minister added that he did not agree with the declaration of martial law nor with mobilizing the military.
I fundamentally oppose the mobilization of military forces for martial law and expressed a negative opinion about it.
When asked who wrote the martial law decree, he said it was not from the Defense Ministry. Army Chief of Staff General Park Han-soo, who was named martial law commander, was also present and said he did not know much about events, including the fact he was to be the martial law commander.
After the commanders' meeting at the Joint Chiefs of Staff Command Center, the defense minister told me that I was a martial law commander. That is when I knew. I was indeed unaware of the details, such as the process and the movement of the troops.
After appointing General Park, the former defense minister reportedly said that all responsibility for military activities lay with him, and that if orders were not obeyed, this would be considered insubordination. He then led the martial law command, saying he had received command authority from the president. President Yoon apparently visited the Joint Chiefs of Staff Command Center where the martial law command post had been established around 1 a.m. on Wednesday, which was around the same time the Assembly passed a resolution to repeal martial law. General Park added that he submitted his resignation to then Defense Minister Kim on Wednesday, which, according to sources at the presidential office, was rejected by President Yoon the next day. Meanwhile, President Yoon named a new defense minister on Thursday morning after accepting the resignation of the outgoing Kim. Former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Choi Byung-hyuk, who the presidential office called the right candidate based on his extensive experience and expertise in defense, was chosen to head the ministry. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance Choi Sang-mok said Thursday that the impact on the Korean economy from President Yoon's emergency martial law order would be limited. Speaking to Bloomberg, Choi said both the economy and the stock market would see a limited impact as it was lifted quickly. He stressed that the order was done in accordance with the Constitution and laws. The finance minister also said that if volatility increases in the short term, the Bank of Korea and the financial authorities will jointly supply liquidity to the market. He also said the concerns about an economic recession in the country are excessive. Now, the United States has indicated that its alliance with South Korea remains ironclad despite the ongoing presidential turmoil. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
Washington has signaled confidence that the South Korea-U.S. alliance will survive any bumps in the presidency or government of either side, amid controversy surrounding President Yoon Suk Yeol's imposing of and then cancelling emergency martial law. On Thursday, when asked about the South Korean parliament's push to impeach the president, the U.S. State Department's deputy spokesperson Vedant Patel said Washington is encouraged by the democratic resilience of South Korea during a period of testing, and that it continues to expect Seoul's democratic system and process to prevail. Calling the impeachment motion an internal process, Patel said the U.S. expects it to be handled in accordance with the Constitution. The State Department added that the South Korea-U.S. alliance will transcend any particular president or government on both sides, appearing to reassure Seoul after the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell criticized Yoon for having, quote, badly misjudged and referred to the martial law order as a deeply illegitimate process. In response, South Korea's foreign ministry revealed it is engaging in communication at all levels with Washington, and that the U.S. has reaffirmed its ironclad commitment to the alliance. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has cancelled his plans to travel to South Korea in the near future. His South Korean counterpart has resigned, taking responsibility for advising Yoon to declare martial law. With the public uproar and ongoing protests in the days following, two State Department officials speaking to Reuters called the situation unsuitable for such a diplomatic engagement. U.S. officials say there was consultation with South Korean officials before the decision was reached. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In the meantime, South Korean police are now investigating President Yoon for alleged insurrection over his short-lived declaration of martial law. What lies ahead for the troubled South Korean leader? Let's turn to Professor Lee Hyun this morning. Hello there, Professor Lee.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Would you say President Yoon's call for martial law decree is considered insurrection? I mean, why are there comments that it is?
Right, because under the Criminal Act of Korea, the insurrection is one of the bases for, prosecution for a president. President generally enjoys immunity, but insurrection is the kind of activity that you would incite violence, and particularly in this kind of case where it's a highly politicized event, of course, by sending potentially troops to the National Assembly, and as we heard this morning, arresting officials. that would amount to a cause of violence against the state, which I think in this case would potentially amount to insurrection. So I think the facts need to, of course, be drawn out further, but it appears that as the facts come out more and more, that there seems to be a case potentially for some criminal prosecution for insurrection. So I think the possibility is relatively high that this case could be pursued by the prosecution against the president for the crime of insurrection.
Well, there were claims that within the prosecution, the martial law declaration amounted to an abuse of power, which is why there is a direct investigation into the case now. But isn't it impossible for a president to be indicted except for treason?
That's right. Under the Korean Constitution, this is Article 87, it provides that the president can only, in terms of insurrection itself, but I'm referring to Article 84 of the Constitution, that the president cannot be charged with any crime except for insurrection or treason. So in this case, if there's an abuse of power or abuse of authority, that is a criminal act normally that you can apply to public officials. But under the Constitution, the president enjoys immunity. So in this case, the only two crimes that the president can be prosecuted for while he's in office is insurrection or treason.
Well, the impeachment vote is taking place tomorrow here in South Korea on Saturday. A two-thirds of majority is required to pass the motion, as we all know, now, which would need support from at least 8 lawmakers from the ruling party. Now, can the opposition camp push for another round of impeachment motion if it's not passed tomorrow?
Well, I mean, the situation, as you know, is very fluid. I mean, last night, we heard that maybe the ruling party, PPP, would not vote in favor of impeachment. But this morning, as we heard, as you reported, it seems like they're going to vote maybe potentially in favor of it. But if they do vote against it for whatever reason, then of course the progressive bloc of the National Assembly can continue to introduce those motions until the impeachment motion is passed. But of course, all eyes will be on Saturday, obviously tomorrow, to see whether or not the PPP will in fact now vote in favor of impeachment, given that the opposition ruling party leader has indicated that President Yoon has to be suspended. So it's likely we'll see tomorrow that maybe the PPP will vote now in favor of impeachment and get those 8 votes necessary, at least 8 votes necessary for impeachment to actually happen.
Right, at least 8 votes. Now, once the impeachment motion is passed, let's say it will move on to the Constitutional Court. Now, we are missing 3 constitutional judges to conduct hearings and decisions at the moment, but, theoretically speaking, that really shouldn't be a problem, right?
Well, the difficulty here is that under the Constitutional Court Act of Korea, so there's a law that governs the procedures for the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court will be the place where the trial is supposed to be held for impeachment. But under the rules of the court itself, there needs to be at least 7 judges for there to be a full bench. And a full bench is necessary for any adjudication. So given the fact that since October 17, we've only now had 6 judges, given that 3 judges had their terms ended, because there's a total of 9 judges, 6 judges theoretically wouldn't be able to constitute a full bench. So I think there's some difficulties here. If a trial were supposed to happen, there's going to be some internal procedural issues because a full bench cannot be constituted.
Well, Professor Lee, then let's say just 5 out of 6 judges vote in favor of impeachment. Then what happens when the 3 missing judges join the 6 in the future? I mean, is there any possibility that the decision maybe, will be overturned?
Right, because I think so, because under the court, again, under the court's rules, in order for there to be a full adjudication, there has to be at least 7 judges. So if there are 6 judges who vote in favor, I mean, theoretically, there's a possibility that this could go forward. But I think there's going to be some difficulties here because despite the fact that you have, this number of judges, you only have, in this case, again, 6 judges currently. The fact that you're missing the 7th judge in order to have this adjudication, 6 judges voting in favor, I think will cause some procedural problems for the court. So I think it's unlikely that would happen. But I think, of course, the court is looking into that situation. So we'll see as time progresses.
Alrighty, Professor Lee, we'll have to get back to you tomorrow morning on the impeachment vote day. Thanks so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
South Korea's current account was in the black for the sixth straight month in October on the back of strong exports. Preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Friday showed that the country's overall current account balance in October logged a surplus of $9.8 billion. The latest figures for October were mainly driven by the goods balance, which tracks exports and imports of products, logging a surplus of $8.1 billion and remaining in the black since April last year. Exports were up 4% on-year in October, mostly due to the strong demand for chips, while imports dropped slightly by 0.7% as inbound shipments of raw materials such as crude oil fell. A last-minute agreement between Seoul Metro and its labor union early Friday morning means a strike has been avoided. However, a strike by the workers of the national railway operator Korea-U.S. continues. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
Wage and collective bargaining agreement negotiations between Seoul Metro and its labor union ended with a deal in the early hours of Friday morning, preventing a strike. The labor union had previously said that a strike would begin with the first subway train on Friday. However, a deal agreed at around 2 a.m. ended any threat of delayed subways for morning commuters. The agreement includes a wage increase of 2.5% and a provision to hire around 630 new employees. The management side also agreed to fill the positions of the 301 workers who retired this year on top of the new hires. Seoul Metro operates subway lines 1 to 8 in Seoul. Meanwhile, the indefinite strike by the workers of the national railway operator Korea-U.S. meant some trains and subways experienced delays and cancellations on Thursday. Subway lines 1, 3, and 4 saw delays as Korea-U.S. operates the lines jointly with Seoul Metro. A number of high-speed KTX and other trains were either delayed or canceled due to the strike. However, a Korea-U.S. official said some of the delays to the subways or trains during the morning rush hour were not due to the strike. The railway operator has been in emergency transport mode since the strike began Thursday, as they have mobilized all available personnel and resources to minimize any traffic disruptions. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Sweden, December isn't just a time for year-end celebrations. It's also the season to honor the year's Nobel Prize laureates during the highly anticipated Nobel Week. Our culture correspondent Song Yujin is in Stockholm to give us a glimpse of what's in store for this year's Nobel Week, which starts today.
For the greatest benefit to humankind. Those are the words of Alfred Nobel, the founder of the Nobel Prize, the prestigious accolade that has for over a century honored outstanding achievements in science, literature, and peace work. Every December, Nobel Week celebrates that year's laureates in Sweden, Alfred Nobel's home country.
It is an occasion where we put science and literature and peace work in focus. I mean, that's not done all of the time, and this is a week where we can really highlight these important achievements and reach so many people. So that is what the Nobel Week is about.
This year's Nobel Week runs from Friday to next Thursday.
So I'm here at the Nobel Prize Museum, where a press conference previewing this year's Nobel Week has just taken place. So the museum, as you can see, is fully prepared to start off the week-long event introducing this year's Nobel laureates, including South Korean author Han Gang.
There is plenty to enjoy leading up to the award ceremony on December 10th. Starting at the Nobel Prize Museum, there is the Nobel Creations exhibition. These dresses were created by first-year students at Beckmans College of Design in Stockholm based on their interpretations of this year's Nobel Prize winners.
And it feels like a big first step to have this publicity, and it's a great honor to interpret the prizes. And also that the Nobel Prize winners are going to see these creations.
This dress has been inspired by this year's Nobel laureate in literature, Han Gang.
It symbolizes that she's held like in a grip of silence. And then there is this hand coming in here, which is a sign of pain and relief. And hidden in the folds of the dress are texts from the books. There is a detail here of a burnt fabric and also broken seams around the dress, and it symbolizes the trauma of war.
Outside, the Nobel Week Lights Festival will bring a festive glow to the week with 16 light installations by artists, designers, and students from Sweden and abroad, illuminating Stockholm from December 7th to 15th. As for Han Gang, she will make a press appearance at the Nobel Laureate in Literature press conference on Friday afternoon, local time. Her schedule also includes visiting local elementary schools to meet students and teachers, discussing her work at the Nobel reading event, and of course, attending the Nobel Prize award ceremony and banquet. 송유진, Arirang News, Stockholm.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Starting in the U.S., a magnitude 7.0 earthquake hit the Northern California coast on Thursday local time. The United States Geological Survey reported that the quake struck at 10:44 a.m. A tsunami warning was issued for coastal areas, including San Francisco, but the warning was soon canceled. The National Weather Service said that some 4.7 million residents in California and Oregon had received the tsunami warning. An evacuation order issued for parts of Berkeley, California, was also lifted. The USGS estimated that more than 150,000 people might have felt the shaking. While a 7.0 to 7.9 magnitude earthquake is categorized as a major earthquake, usually causing serious damage, there are no reports of damage or landslides as of now other than minor damage, including cracks in roads and roofs reported in Humboldt County. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov faced criticism from Western countries, including the United States, during an annual meeting of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, held in Malta on Thursday. This marked Lavrov's first visit to a European Union member state since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Lavrov's attendance at the ministerial meeting has stirred controversy. His Ukrainian counterpart Andriy Sybiha walked out of the meeting hall before Lavrov's remarks, labeling him a war criminal. Poland's foreign minister also declined to meet Lavrov, and several other officials left the forum ahead of the Russian diplomat's comments. Sybiha stated that Russia's participation in the OSCE undermines the organization's mission and characterized Moscow as the biggest threat to our common security. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who was also present at the meeting, accused Russia of escalating the war in Ukraine and spreading misinformation. With a friendlier regulatory approach to cryptocurrencies expected under U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, Bitcoin surpassed the milestone $100,000 mark on Thursday afternoon Korean time. The latest surge came just hours after Trump tapped cryptocurrency advocate Paul Atkins as the next chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission. According to the crypto tracking website CoinMarketCap, Bitcoin peaked at just above $103,900 before dropping below $100,000 early Friday morning. The price of Bitcoin has increased by as much as 45% since Trump's election. NASA announced on Thursday that there will be further delays in its Artemis program, which aims to send astronauts back to the moon for the first time since the Apollo mission more than 50 years ago. The second Artemis program mission, which intends to send 4 astronauts around the moon and back, is now scheduled for April 2026. The third mission, which involves 2 astronauts landing on the moon, has been postponed to no earlier than mid-2027. According to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, these delays are partly due to issues with the heat shield of the Orion capsule, which sustained unexpected damage during the uncrewed Artemis 1 mission in 2022.
Overnight, wintry precipitation has let up in the capital area, but Jeollado provinces need to brace for 1 to 5 millimeters of more wet weather into this morning. Then we should notice gradual drop in temperatures over the weekend, waking up to a low of -4 degrees Celsius by Sunday morning. Dress in layers for any outdoor activities this weekend. Meanwhile, those heading to the East Coast need to brace for extremely dry and windy conditions, with weather alerts being issued. If you're going hiking in the area, stay alert against any potential wildfires, please. Afternoon temperatures will be 1 to 5 degrees lower this afternoon under sunnier skies. Seoul gets up to 4 degrees, Daegu, Gwangju topping out at 9 degrees Celsius. Saturday is Daeseol on the seasonal calendar, meaning big snow, but we've already had a massive one here in the capital. However, southern provinces and Jeju Island could see mix of rain and snow over the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up our morning edition of Arirang News. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.